Dr. Kira Mosley-Hobbs works with the Department of Education's FSA office, continuing a more than 15-year career in post-secondary education and federal student aid, where she has held positions such as tech specialist, financial aid director, and now policy specialist at FSA. Her focus as a policy specialist at FSA's Office of Policy Liaison and Implementation has been on the FAFSA, student eligibility, verification, needs analysis, community outreach, and the experimental sites initiative. Kira contributes to guidance and outreach in FSA areas, including FAFSA design and completion, verification, EFC formulas, student eligibility, the design and administration of experiments under the Experimental Sites Initiative, and collaborating in these areas with the Office of Post-Secondary Education, under the Undersecretary's Office and the General Counsel's Office. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our speaker, who is organizing today's activities, Dr. Kira Mosley-Hobbs. Thank you.
I usually just walk around as I speak. If I start talking low, let me know, because my ears are clogged and I don't know why. So I'm really loud in my own head. My son told me this morning that I was speaking low, and I said, "What are you talking about?" I'm totally yelling at you. So what we're talking about today in the terms of diversity is diversity beyond what we think of with diversity, which is race, how we all look. And so we're talking about, especially in federal student aid, our diversity is diversity of culture, demographics, and experiences. And so most of us know that students in Maryland are different than students in New York City, which are different than students in the Midwest, which are different than our California students. It's not just a program, but it's also their needs and experiences. So we're going to test the limits of not being able to judge a book by its cover, not being able to look at each other and figure out what kind of experiences we had based on our like features or our features as compared to people that we have interactions with. So everyone has a sheet of paper in front of you, and your goal on this sheet of paper, what I need you to do is write down 2 interesting facts about yourself that you don't think most people know, that you don't mind sharing. I'm going to, and don't show it to anyone. Hide your paper like you did the test in elementary and middle school, when you just knew you had all the answers, and your peers, in fact, did not know that 2 + 2 was 4. So you want to hide your fact. You want to write down your fact, something that you don't mind sharing, and then you're going to fold it up real tight, and then I'm going to come and collect it from you. Okay, so we ready? So what's going to happen now is I am going to randomly select your facts to read. And then I want you guys to look at each other. And you're going to try to figure out who the fact belongs to. Okay? And then, if you want, you can have a minute or 2 of dialogue afterwards if somebody says something interesting. And you're like, really? So you dissected a dinosaur when you was 13? People will want to talk about that. Okay. So our first fact reads, I have been with the federal government for 34 years.
Look by its cover. Old people, Ron.
I'd prove myself.
Is it what? 30 what years?
34 years.
Bruce.
Not Joe.
No guess? Okay, who does that belong to?
Oh, really?
Yes.
I was wrong.
See, I questioned it because you look like you were looking for somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Looking for us.
I coached soccer.
Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, did you know that?
I just told me in the past that he's doing it.
Okay. I'm a state champion in high school for oratorical competitions.
Robert.
Bruce.
Does seem like Robert, right?
However,
Andy.
he's in.
Okay, who does that belong to?
It's mine.
It's yours? Yes. I traveled through Taiwan for a week.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
Susan.
Susan, yeah.
It's Susan.
Look at that poker face.
Yes, it is you.
Is it you, Susan?
No, it is not.
Oh, it's not.
Run. Run's just smiling.
Is it you, Ron?
Yes,
Nice. I want to retire to Europe. Yes,
George.
yes.
What was it?
It says, love to retire in Europe.
George.
It's me.
Hey, Kira, maybe if we can see their name.
Okay.
I'm
sorry,
just,
we didn't do it.
I'm not sure everybody knows.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine, you're fine. So we can go around and introduce
Just for
ourselves
names,
to each other. Your name and what do we call it, pops here?
What is
Let's
This
do
is
it.
your
Yeah.
So I'm Bizops, I'm George Magada.
Okay.
Is it a hard one?
Joe.
Yvonne Watkins, Administrative Services,
Hello.
Kingdom Town of Achievement.
Joe Barkley, Business Ops.
Renee. Sorry.
This one, right?
Your turn.
So tell us your name and what department you work on.
Rick Armwood, I work in the technology office.
Where's your right down? Here, you're on assignment. You have to chop chop, yes.
Yes, I was coming here wanting not to be.
No. Oh, should we continue the
Yes.
introduction? Here we go.
Robert Gomez, USA Communications.
Susan Thayer's customer experience.
All right, I gotta work and get you.
Ronald Roach, FSA Communications.
Bruce Hughes, PLI.
And Renee.
Renee Dimity.
You have to talk louder for us old people.
Okay, so we were going through the interesting facts that people shared about themselves. And you're trying to figure out who the interesting facts belong to. It's a way to display how you cannot, in fact, judge a book by its cover. You can't look at people and guess their experiences, their wants, their goals, the things that bring them joy. I speak 3 languages.
Renee.
He says, Robert, you're bad. Robert.
3 languages.
I don't know.
Now, who does that belong to?
Sure.
I speak Italian, I speak Farsi, I speak English.
Okay. And generally, it wasn't default to guess Robert for obvious reasons, and we're honest with ourselves, right? No. We expected him to speak Spanish and English, and maybe a third we couldn't speak of, maybe Portuguese.
Spanglish.
Spanglish. Yeah. So that was a great example as how you can get it wrong, just judging with
And
someone
you
else.
also work in communications, so that's
Yes,
also
exactly.
implied.
There's a lot of reasons to assume that it was Robert. I am a 49ers fan. As a Baltimorean, I had to read that.
Renee.
I am from the San Francisco Bay Area, I am, but it is not me. It's definitely not me.
Is it Rick, right? Yes, Rick. Is it, I'm guessing Rick.
Yes. Nice. Why do you like the 49ers?
I grew up watching 49ers, and since I had a lot of family members that were Redskins fans and Cowboy fans, I had to pick someone far away. I picked the 49ers from the West Coast.
You from the area? I was in Massachusetts, California.
No,
Oh,
I just had so many people that, so many Redskins, Cowboys, Redskins, Cowboys. I said, you know what, let me just go to the West Coast and find this.
I became a U.S. citizen after 9/11.
Ooh.
Not even, yeah, nobody else guessed. Yes, Robert? Robert?
Was it Renee?
It is.
It's Renee?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For the longest time, we were a lawful permanent residents, but after 9/11, my mom finally said, "Oh, we should probably become citizens now." And it was only, I was young, and the law provides that because I was a minor, I inherit my mom's citizenship as well. But it was after 9/11 when that all happened. So I'm a relatively young American citizen.
Wow. Yes.
I collect baseball information on the Negro Leagues.
Ooh.
You.
No.
Joe,
I hate baseball.
Joe.
Because you like baseball too.
Oh, wait. Who's the gentleman at the far end?
I'm Preston Clark.
And did you do part of this?
I sure did.
Oh, ooh. I wasn't sure if he filled out the slip, so I'm just trying to gauge.
Preston Clark.
I think Preston, I'm changing my answer.
Yeah. No, I think Joe does like.
So who did that one belong to?
It belongs to me.
Ah, should have stuck with my original answer.
How long have you been collecting?
Oh, for a long time. I read the book, Only the Ball is White, and talked about the Negro Leagues and the players like Jackie Robinson, Ernie Banks, and there are some of the more notable ones that played in the Negro League before coming to Major League Baseball. And a lot of them played in Major League stadiums because they couldn't fill up the stadiums with the Phillies or the Cardinals. So they had the Negro Leagues would come in and they would fill up the stadium. It was great. It was great baseball.
Do you
And-
collect memorabilia too, or just?
Yeah, both. And my goal is to go to Kansas City to the museum there. That's the Negro League Museum there. So I want to go there. I've been other places, but I haven't been there yet. But yeah, so I've been doing it for a long, long time. I have it's a new jacket, but it's Jackie Robinson played the Kansas City Monarchs before he went to the major leagues, and so I have one of those old jackets. Yeah. So,
Is that so hard to find?
no, but very expensive. Yes, you know, it's, so if you like it, you don't mind it, you negotiate a little bit, but yeah, it's not hard to find.
Okay. I am an award-winning poet.
That's interesting.
Bruce.
I'm Bruce.
No,
Renee.
no, it's not me.
Award winning. Wow, I'm impressed, or whoever that is.
That's me.
You didn't say you were included.
Wait, no, you were included?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you said.
I became the legal guardian of my best friend's daughter when she died.
Susan.
Yep. 2 daughters, actually.
2 daughters? Okay. Around what age were they?
They were teenagers. I moved from one state to where they lived in Iowa so that they would not have to relocate. But my friend was 38. She died of cancer. Yep. So I went from free and single to teenagers.
Wow.
I wouldn't change a thing.
I am a classically trained pianist.
Ooh, classic.
You.
Preston.
Yeah, yes.
No.
That face, that look on your face had me thinking, yes.
You.
No?
I got an answer now. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish.
No, yeah, it's
Bruce.
Yes,
Bruce. Yeah. How long have you been playing?
I've been playing, I started playing 20 years ago.
Really?
I was 13.
You should bring the keyboard in and show us.
Wow, that's impressive.
Okay. I'm a former school safety patrol captain in sixth grade?
Ron.
I'm guessing Ron.
Who's it belong to?
Lee.
Ron.
It looked like she was only
Right, right. Did you only do sixth grade?
Yeah, it was, well, yeah, it was just for the sixth graders, not, we didn't allow fifth graders and fourth graders.
What is it? Like a
School
patrol,
safety.
like
Yeah.
a patrol, like a call?
I don't think they let us do that.
Well, where we lived in North Carolina, you know, it was, I'm sorry, school, 1 through 6th grade, and school safety monitors or safety patrol, were the kids who got to kind of direct the traffic or just kind
like
of,
crosswalks and stuff like that.
Crosswalks,
when,
or just direct kids in the right direction.
I am a Trekkie. Does everyone know what a Trekkie is?
Yes.
People that love Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
A lot.
What's her name?
No. No.
Robert.
I didn't even know what a church was.
Oh, yeah,
Wasn't Rocky, I was like,
Who's that belong to?
Chris.
You're a Trekkie?
Yeah.
Explain what a Trekkie is and why you're a Trekkie.
Wow.
Where that started.
So we didn't do summer vacations. We run TV. That was our summer vacation. And so I got introduced to Captain Kirk and crew. I kind of developed an encyclopedic knowledge of pretty much all things Trekkie up until about 2002. I've competed in conventions. I've won a few for trivia, like a Star Trek Jeopardy.
Don't they have some like gathering like in Riverside, Iowa or something? Is it someplace in Iowa that's
Yeah,
an
where
annual Trek Fest or something?
the future birthplace of Captain James T. Kirk.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Future birthplace.
Yeah.
It takes place in the future, and he's from Iowa. So
it's like way back when he was born.
A different future,
Okay.
I DJ'd for many years.
Bruce.
No.
He loved to
piano.
DJ though.
I would love to learn how to DJ.
I think Robert.
I think it was Robert.
It was Robert?
Oh, that's a cool word.
Really?
That's why I wrote four years.
What kind of music?
Yeah, that's what
I was in LA, so it was predominantly hip hop, but there was, you name it, 80s, Spanish music too, Spanish rock, something like that.
Were you any good? Like, did your crowd disperse off the dance floor? Every song that
At
you-
one wedding,
did you
it
maintain?
happened.
Did it?
It happened, but that was a horrible.
In case anyone knows, that's the measurement of a DJ.
At
If the
one
dance
time
is
it
in
happened.
the
Start
dance floor,
and then-
you failed.
The funny thing is that time I got hired for that one, I had DJ'd, well, it was like a Macy's, it was called Robinson's May out in the West Coast, I don't know if that was happening here.
Yep.
But it was one of their holiday parties, so that one was amazing. So the person who coordinated that, she's like, great, do a wedding. And I said, I'm not a wedding, you really need like an MC, you got it. So I did it, it was like a small wedding, but it was not a good time. It was not a good time, no, absolutely
So you
not.
went to Federal Student Aid, right?
Yeah.
Well, what next time I do
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your last DJ job?
That was 4 years ago. I mean, no, not 4 years ago. This happened my last 2 years of high school, my first year of college. It happened, I don't even remember. Yeah, I wish I remembered that. Where's me?
My daughter wrote a book.
Yvonne.
You.
No?
Nope.
Not you.
Nope.
Did you say son? What's your dad doing?
No, my daughter's son.
Not even Joey.
Books?
Prodigy.
Yes. Who does that belong to?
Ah, how old is she?
She's 9.
And she wrote a book?
Yeah, well, it was actually initially a school project that she wrote a book portrait, and she turned it in. And they loved it, so they entered it into a school contest. She won for that, and then they entered into the county contest, and she won for that. So,
Wow.
Nice.
I was the sports editor for my school paper.
Okay, that's
Can't
not right.
judge a book by its cover.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
It's too serious for brothers.
Is it you, Joe? Oh, I thought it was baseball.
You? What's that about?
Take it back. You were trying to guess. I'm looking at you. Who the fact belongs to, then you realize how long you are by measuring people other things. So who in here looks like they were the sports editor of their high school paper?
Where? Robert?
Yeah, I was thinking one of the communications people.
It was me.
Oh, wow.
I will look at you differently.
That's like the baseball thing. Satchel Paige played up in Bismarck, North Dakota. I'm a Midwest girl for a while.
Okay, that's
Yep.
true. Okay.
Were you into sports?
Yes.
Or were
Yeah.
that was what you was assigned?
No, actually, it was in sports. My sister and I are 11 months apart. So once she was born, my mother always had her. So I was kind of always with my dad. I mean, each one had a kid.
Right.
And he loved sports. And so I just, we watched baseball, football, and then I came to love it. And when I was first grade, well, you young ones won't remember, but Rod Carew,
Oh,
who
yeah.
played for the Minnesota
Minnesota
Twins,
Twins, yeah.
when his rookie year, they used to, during the winter, would have these baseball banquets, and these, poor young players had to go around to all these little towns that had baseball banquets and talk. And I was like the only girl. First grade, went with my dad, baseball
right.
banquets, so, yeah. And then I got to be at the game where they retired his jersey, so, yeah.
Okay.
So, full circle with Rod Carew, but I've always loved sports, still do.
I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice.
Ooh. You have to introduce yourself.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name is Najma Sheikh and I work in acquisitions as a contract specialist and I've been at Ed for 4 years.
That's you. You were a criminal justice major.
Is it you, Kira?
It is.
It's Kara. I was looking to see. I was looking at Facebook. He was like, look at this.
I am the youngest of 9 kids.
Oh, you're the fighter. Who's a fighter?
Nice.
Is that you?
Wow. Is that good or
Oh,
bad?
no,
being
I'm not the
youngest?
youngest of
Oh, you're not the
mine.
youngest?
I'm finishing hers.
Oh,
Oh, that's not me.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Good, to rethink it.
Renee.
Ooh, 109.
Joe.
Who's that belong to?
Who's that?
Preston.
Preston.
Really?
We all have the same initials, including my parents.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
Old school
Really?
fat, like that
It
fat
is.
belongs to like baby boomers.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
Was that good or bad being the youngest?
that was great. By the time my older brothers and sisters went through everything, they broke in my parents, so.
So it was like, whatever.
Yeah.
He's alive
You're
today.
the only ones who are like, how are you gonna let me away with that? Now I get it from my daughter.
Yeah. I traveled to Switzerland to see the Alps.
You.
Renee.
Nope. Susan. Not me.
Nope, not me.
Robert.
What makes you guys think it was Renee? Like some of the most interesting things.
I know that
He
you
does
traveled,
travel.
and I know that you've traveled, so.
I have not been to Switzerland.
Who's that belong to?
Who?
Right here.
Ah!
When did you go?
I went in college in 2009.
Wow. How was it?
It was beautiful. It's definitely one of my favorite places on earth. If you get a chance, I highly recommend it.
Was it cold? The word Alps sounds cold.
It was cool.
It was?
It wasn't cold though. It was just cool.
It was just cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm a fraternal twin. Bruce is like.
Bruce. No. No.
Is there another? Oh. Good.
No.
Are you saying that?
Broke them over here.
Who's that belong to?
Ron.
It's me.
You are?
I just wanted to throw people off. Yeah.
See, I
I
know,
was like,
I
who
actually
could that-
do.
You knew it. You wanted to give it like.
They haven't guessed you at all, Robert. Yes. I wrote for a newspaper from 12 to 22.
Wow.
12 years old to 22. Susan.
Nope.
Sport that.
Is that you?
That's me also.
Ah,
I've
Which
had an
pa-
interesting life.
Which paper?
The Baltimore Times.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He's a former
So a club reporter.
I've made a wedding cake from scratch.
Okay.
So having kids and not getting married, I'm not making wedding cakes.
off the board.
Susan.
No, it's,
Not me.
Yvonne.
Najma? Yep, it's me.
Najma?
How many tiers was it?
Right.
Was it multiple tiers? 3 tiers?
With the decorations and all that stuff?
Yep.
You did all of the little swirly
Ambitious.
stuff?
These
Swirly stuff.
I decided wedding cakes was not for me. I do smaller cakes though. Well, I didn't sell it, I just did it as a gift.
Oh.
Since it was my first time, I was like, we'll just do it as a courtesy for a friend. But,
Would you do it again? No.
you know,
Too much?
there's just too much pressure, and if anything goes wrong,
mm-hmm.
Hey, Joey.
or in transporting a large something like that. there's
Oh,
pressure.
that's true.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, so we're gonna move over to the board for some interesting stuff. We're gonna pull some celebrities in here and see if you can guess. And I'm gonna give you some facts. See if you can figure out who they belong to. Okay. I have a bug species that was named after me.
Beyonce.
Say that again?
It was Beyonce.
What? Really?
Yes.
Oh,
I have a bug species that is named after me.
We got someone represent the Beehive over here.
Steve. the bug?
But that's not,
It's the Beyonce,
The
apparently.
beehive.
Oh, not a real species.
It's a real
Species.
Yes, it is.
all right, do we have to Google it?
Because she's a queen bee.
At one point in history, I was the
we'll
richest
see
man in
that.
the world.
Napoleon.
At one point in
Elvis.
history, I was the richest man in the world.
Elvis.
Not Elvis.
Napoleon.
No, man's from history.
Who is that?
Mali, he's the king of Mali, Africa.
Yeah, who gave her this
I didn't know.
Gave away his stuff.
I was once offered to be the president of Israel, and I turned it down.
Albert Einstein.
Not that we were going to believe in Elvis.
Play your emotion.
I probably should have did this one before Beyonce. I was once told I couldn't sing and would never make it.
Elvis.
Oh, Beyonce can sing.
Napoleon.
Robert.
She entered competitions and very much lost. I once passed a law requiring people to wear hats on Sundays.
Queen Elizabeth.
Yes. Oh, y'all guessed the celebrities, but y'all couldn't guess each other. Interesting. And then Napoleon's Bonaparte. Basic fact is,
He's very short.
he was also an artist and a writer.
Ah.
And a writer.
That's why he stole all the stuff from,
Yes.
It's so, the Louis is full of Italian stuff.
Yes.
My mom gets very upset about that because they want things that
So we're
French
approaching
came as well as
12:45, so I would
Italian.
like to have some reflections on kind of your feedback of this activity, of the surprises that you have, learning about each other, the differences in each other, and whether or not you feel like judging people by their appearances is still fairly accurate. Nobody guessed Robert today. And we all did that prejudice where we thought Robert would speak 3 languages. We all did that. So, just some thoughts on the activity, your reflections. Go ahead, Robert.
I was in too quick, I think. The one about the U.S. citizen not becoming U.S. after 9/11. I saw some looks at me and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've never felt that way, right? Oh, I didn't like he didn't. I but I just thought it was interesting. I guess, but and the other that I sort of when you asked about who was the high school sports editor or something like that.
That no one looked in
Yeah,
the direction.
and oh no, it wasn't me, but it was, I know Susan.
It wasn't me.
But I just was reflecting. I was like, I was only looking at guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like the stereotype, like dudes are.
But similarly with the Negro Baseball League, right? You made an assumption
Yeah,
that it
yeah.
wasn't, it wasn't me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It was, yeah.
Right, right.
Although now I'm intrigued and want to know more, Joe, but
And we do it Ron Carew too.
I'm old.
And he was a good ball player.
Any other reflections?
I think the media has really strong stereotypes about different races and genders, and even people of different ages. And I think subconsciously, even if you don't watch too much TV, you've been exposed to so much of this stuff that subconsciously, I'm automatically the one that becomes one of 9 children.
Right.
Whereas, like, I mean,
Like being in this activity, and then because everyone's kind of looking around at each other, then you can see not only the assumptions you have at other people, but the assumptions that people have about you. Like you're automatically the foreigner. Maybe you're automatically the foreigner, where it could have easily been Bruce, whose parents was from Nigeria, and he was born over there, but he doesn't have the accent, And there are certain assumptions. And then you get to reflect on your own kind of assumptions and prejudices of other people. Like I was saying to him, I would think someone who would be the youngest of 9 would be older, a lot older. So, or I would have assumed that Robert spoke 3 languages. Or I wouldn't have thought that Susan was a sports editor. I probably would have gave it to my man here in the top. He looks like he's into sports, and then he put the other 49.
That's right.
Yeah.
so what can you do to overcome those stereotypes or help other people overcome stereotypes?
What do you think you can do?
Be open. Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Well, that's very difficult because, you're socialized a certain way. Because while we say we're not impacted by it, we all are.
Right.
And we all have to work against that. Because, and that's to say to be open to recognize that you have these. Because everybody says, well, when I'm in certain communities, they'll say, I don't see color. And I go like, oh, here we go. You do see color.
And that's
You
okay.
do. Yeah, you naturally do see color. You see differences. But then how you impacted by seeing those differences.
It's
That's
about being aware and celebrating differences.
Yeah.
We celebrate differences in almost everything but humanity.
Right.
You like a diverse garden. You
Right.
like a diverse aquarium with different, look at all the pretty different colored fish. Look at all the pretty different flowers. Look at all the pretty different foods that are above that. But when it comes to each other and people, we want to limit and we disperse into our social groups and we begin to separate ourselves. And when you start seeing people's differences, you get intrigued about their experiences and their cultures and what is this. And then at the same time, because of racism and discrimination and the negativities about diversity, then we start being afraid to ask people questions about their culture and their homes and their household and their experiences. So one of the things that I try to do to help spread diversity is I tell people, don't be afraid to ask me questions, even if you think it's offensive. If it is offensive, I'll explain to you why you probably shouldn't say that to somebody else who hasn't told you that, you know what I mean? And what that means, to the community. And even in PLI, I pull Bruce into certain things and we'll have certain conversations about, I think once we were joking around with Craig about the concept of the kitchen. And I was like, Craig, the kitchen is something totally different in my environment. And Bruce happened to wander, and I was like, Bruce, what's the kitchen? He was like, which one, the kitchen or the backyard? So it's about, exposing people so that they can learn the differences. And so, one step is admitting the differences, accepting the differences, appreciating the differences, and kind of being okay with that.
I was going to say, I also think we have some preconceived notions or almost prejudices between business units, right? And I think if you're working and certain people already have a preconceived notion about, X group, I think sometimes that filters, through to the rest of the team without really ever having been exposed to them or whatever. And I don't think sometimes we really realize that. And as far as you talk about being open, and I just, we use an example. It was not too long after I was here, and we were hiring for a position, and we were doing Skype interviews. It was down to the final two, and it was a young man and a young lady, and immediately I was like, oh, it's her. But I was like to think about it, and I realized the reason I'm both equally skilled, but she was the most like me, and so I did not select her. But my first instinct was, ooh, yeah. But then I was like, I don't need more of me, on the team. But you have to make a conscious, choice of a thought to.
Dealing with people that's just like you is just easier.
Yeah.
That's all it comes down to. It's just easier for people for you to be able to communicate without really trying that much, for you to interact with people without really trying that much. So I think the biggest step that all of you can walk away with is being aware that when it comes to the conversation about diversity and prejudices and all that stuff, we have a tendency to think about what happens to us. And this activity kind of brings to mind that what you do unintentionally to others. And so it's kind of a circular thing that, you just got to be aware. And differences are not bad, and differences are interesting. So even when someone is different than you, not just in race, but in culture and experience and all that stuff, it makes an interesting conversation rather than something to be afraid of. Any closing thoughts?
I don't want this to be a closing thought, but someone else. But to piggyback on Susan's point about making conscious decisions, there's a video that went viral that sort of maybe the talking point is where I got it from, where it was a TV show, there's an African American young lady there, and a white caller calls in and says that he's a racist and blah, blah, blah. And apparently, after a while, they became friends, they met, but the young lady said something along the lines of making a conscious decision of reaching out, of engaging with other people of different backgrounds. And that really struck a chord with me, and I'm like, I always think that friendships and mentorships, they have to happen organically. You can't force like a friendship, it just has to happen. And I'll share this, I don't know if that's recording, but if it is, my name's Paco. That at my wedding, I realized that on my side, it was a predominantly family, and I'm of Mexican descent, so there was a bunch of Latinos, and everybody was Mexican. On my wife's side, who was raised in this area, there was more diversity. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I go, I have diverse friends, but I just don't know. She's like, no, they're not friends. She's like, those are work friends. And I go, what do you mean? And so I was trying to ask her to elaborate. She goes, no, they're specific. She's like, you can hang out with people at work. She goes, it's another layer once you hang out with them outside of work. I'm like, well, I've hung out with people outside. She's like, no, but again, she's trying to give me a hard time, right? No, it's like inviting people to the house. So since then, I feel like I've tried to make more of a conscious effort to get to know the people. And I'm grateful for these sort of, sessions that feel like safe spaces when you can actually learn anything about it.
I think another layer of diversity of not feeling pressure to change when you go to different environments, that's something I'm working on myself. I'm from Baltimore. I'm a totally different person at home than here. I'm a totally different person if certain people within FSA invite me over to dinner, I'm switched up again, and I can't help it. I just feel required to change in different environments. It is not just, even going back home in Baltimore in certain neighborhoods, visiting certain family members, sitting outside or walking in certain neighborhoods, I feel like I have to be pooter than at my own house, which is also in Baltimore, where I can be a little bit more relaxed compared to the outskirts of Baltimore. When I go to the county, you have to be another way. And so even here, I have to taper down my, Baltimore accent. I say, I'm from Baltimore when I'm here. If I'm not thinking about it, I'm gonna say I'm from Baltimore or Maryland. That's my accent. I put dishes in the zinc. I drink water. I go to the buffet. Words like that. And when I first started working here and I would have that accent, people would correct me. Yes, they would correct me. And so, because I'm feisty, when they would correct me, like there was one conference call we was on where they kept correcting my accent while they were like, so like when we like review this like document, and it's like you correcting me about my accent, but you're saying like every fourth word. And so I started correcting that, and it became tit for tat, and it wasn't helpful for the job or the task at hand. And so what I decided is easier for me to taper down my accent and say Baltimore, and Maryland, and all of that stuff rather than do the interruptions and the back and forth. But it's that need to adjust. Is the other thing that I hope as a society we can get past at some point, where, because part of that diversity is the different accents, the different, experiences, the different thoughts. People can see things that you don't see because they recognize things because of their experience. So, did I see a hand over here?
No.
No. Any other reflections and thoughts?
I'll just say, I'm glad I saw Mona on the elevator. She said, come check it out. So I'm glad I was able to make a portion of it. Thank you for, how you're among us and you're sharing among us. Really great. It's always good. So I think there's something in human nature that wants to be accepted and wants to see that we're, accepted. Where's my group? Where are my peeps? And then there's this tension. There's always this tension. How much can I be myself, and then how much can I be different?
Right.
And you're always just navigating that line. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that you're going to go where you're not feeling you're different,
Right.
you're other, while at the same time you're struggling to also,
Right.
how much of me do I share? So you're always navigating.
Yeah. And then kind of understanding.
I know, because
Okay.
Caroline's meeting, you're 5 minutes late. Missed the meeting, you can take it out.
Thank you for coming. And some of that also, we was talking earlier about not getting offended by people. So, there are some things that I had to realize that people just had questions, like about myself. It would be comments like, oh, you're so pretty, what do you mix with?
Yeah.
And I used to take that as the black of me couldn't be pretty. It had to be something else mixed in there. And then when I realized, and I had to taper that down and realize what their questioning is, because I have different hair, and it's light, and it's curly, and I'm light skinned. And they're looking at the features and saying, you don't look like what I have experienced an American person to look like. So it's a learning opportunity. They're about to learn that we, as a community are diverse. And so I just started clarifying. No, I'm African American, both my parents are black. Oh, really?
But your hair.
Yeah, but your hair, can I touch it? And I used to get mad about that. Stop touching me, But then it became, because if I didn't invite it in or just let them touch me, then I would walk around and I would feel people touch my hair. And so it's either walk around like this, because people touching my hair, or just go ahead. So if people say, can I touch your hair? Yeah, you go ahead and touch it. The first couple of times I felt like I was being petted, but after a while I realized it was people having a different experience, and they was getting to know something that they have never seen yet. So this spring, me and my son went to Ireland. Everywhere I went, it was my hair. Because Ireland is wet, black hair gets puffy and frizzy, so it was really big and really curly, and everyone went, no matter where I went, restaurants, stores, everyone just wanted to touch my hair. And so I just let everybody touch my hair.
Your claim to fame?
Yes, claim it.
Did that happen to your son as well? With people wanting to?
No, my son has light brown eyes, so his eyes is about the color of this table, but he's an African American boy. So he gets the, oh my gosh, you got pretty eyes, what do you mix with? So, but he's new to this experience, so his experience is, my mother, and I have to say, calm down, So, but when you have different eye colors as African American boy, I have to teach him that it's not a weapon. So he can get the girls, and we just gotta teach him that just because you got pretty eyes don't mean you get the girls like that. So calm down. And so it's just like he gets that. What do you mix with? Is your father white and all that stuff? And so I taught him too. It's like, no, that's odd. It's just odd to have eyes that light when you're African.
Yeah, that made me think of something my mom would say before I would leave the house when I was little. She would say these words, but essentially what she would say is to always be the best representation of yourself as possible, because when you go out, you're representing obviously your family and your race and your culture and all of that. And I think that's even more important now as an adult, because sometimes you might be the first black person. Like, people always assume that I play basketball all the time.
Because you're tall and you're skinny.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, like, we don't all play basketball. So I think it's important for us to be mindful of, and
patient with people who maybe you think people have maybe seen someone from your culture before, seen the food that you're eating before, but it's very possible that they haven't. So
Right.
you could be their first glimpse into something that they've never seen or experienced before.
Right. Any other thoughts in the area of patience?
And Preston said a good word, onto your comment, he said, an ambassador.
Yeah. That's
So,
yeah.
and I think a good ambassador, you know, before off of that, I think a good ambassador does recognize that the people and the comments that they bring, that you encounter every day, comes in a context.
Yeah.
And it is historic, it's cultural, it's lack of
Sometimes it's
awareness,
taught.
it's whatever. I mean, I know black people is not used to seeing black people with different color eyes. I know, you know, they're all different kinds of white people, all different kinds of black people, all different kinds of gay people. They're just all different kinds of people. And maybe you are the goldfish amongst the elm trees.
Right.
Or whatever, you know, or among the whales, or just maybe you are the daisy. It just happens. Maybe you're the Lion King and you're with Pumbaa. It just, and maybe you have Pumbaa tendencies, but you are, you know, you're not a lion. You know, you're not a warthog, but you grew up with warthogs, and that's all you know.
Right.
You know, so and so yeah, when you are diverse and beautiful, you attracting people by whatever, you know, you were born with,
Right.
then, you know, actually it is kind of an opportunity to be an ambassador, and actually maybe even be a blessing, but it takes something to get there and recognize that, because it makes us self-conscious.
Right.
Why do you want to touch my hair? Why are you doing this? Why do you even think that,
Yeah.
why do you even think it's okay
Right.
to ask me this?
Right.
Do people ask you that?
Right.
Even though you might be different than them? Is that a lot? You know, so it can go both ways. And
So we have to remember we're within a generation of our society where we're
Right.
still trying to work through
yes.
our prejudices and all that other stuff. And so people,
Right.
we're still learning from each other. Like I recently learned from my son, there's 2 Asian kids, it's a very diverse school he's at, 2 Asian kids, Randy and Amanda. And we were talking about, kids growing up who have the opportunity to be exposed to 2 different languages and how that's one up coming in because America's becoming really diverse and people who speak English and Spanish or English and Japanese and all that stuff. And so I was like, Randy and Amanda, they can both do Chinese. And he's like, first of all, Randy is Chinese, Amanda's Vietnamese. I was like, I don't really know the difference. I was like, he's like, besides it being different on a map, mommy, it's 2 different, completely different places. He was like Amanda goes to like a Buddhist temple. Randy doesn't go anywhere at all. So I'm still learning as an adult. So we have to be patient with ourselves, patient with others, and be open not only to teach but to receive.
No, I liked what you said. I mean, I grew up in a very rural area of South Dakota, right? So you were with all white people, right? And so there becomes like a natural curiosity, but I think that you don't know how to ask questions without offending. I mean, you want to know, you want to learn, and you want to understand. And when I worked at the University of South Dakota Financial Aid, I got all the student athletes. It was like, oh, you're newest, have at it, right? And that was such a learning experience for me because it was the first time you're exposed to a lot of different cultures, different, whatever. And I'd be like, what? What do you? But sometimes you wanted to ask more, and I eventually did. But you didn't want to offend by asking. And I think sometimes by us not asking, then we keep our assumptions, which may not be true.
And we kind of hurt society. So like, Jeff Baker that used to be here,
Yep.
Jeff went to an Orioles game, and he was meeting me and my son there. And when he got there, he says, I parked my car somewhere. He said, and there was a black guy there. And I said, can I park my car there? And he was like, you good. What does that mean? I was like, man, Jeff, that means a lot of different things. How did he say it? Was it like, you good? Or was it like, you good? Or was it like, you good? And he was like, I don't know. I was like, yeah, go move your car. Because even the communication is different. So, any other closing thoughts?
So
We're at 102.
a couple weeks ago was the September 11th, 17th anniversary. I actually looked up I'm a Title IV geek, so I think everything should be federal student aid centric, but the department after September 11th actually issued an electronic announcement. There was a lot of Islamophobia and a lot of potential hate crimes that happened, and actual hate crimes, not just potential, after September 11th with Arab Americans and South Asians. It was a big, the country was certainly affected after September 11th, but there's this notion of othering. But Secretary Page took a really, really firm stance and said that although we have all of our differences in this country, there's still this common denominator, especially in the department, that all Americans should have access to equal opportunity to pursue their education. And I don't think we further that here in federal student aid. It's a bit hokey for me to say that, of course, but
It's true.
that, yeah, the federal Pell Grant program, for instance, it helps all Americans of all stripes of life. And I know that for sure because I was the person who wrote, I became a citizen after 9/11. And I worked on quite a few non-citizen issues here in the department, but just seeing how everyone really, we have our preconceived notions of other groups that, oh, well, you intend to do this with a Pell Grant, or you're just planning to drop out of school, and I don't think you're going to be successful anyhow. This common denominator of pursuing education is a timeless national treasure, or it's a national commitment that we should all hold very close to our hearts. But it's difficult to say that to other people because it doesn't have the same effect. But I'm a Title IV person, so I want to do other things like this too.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and try this.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna say, like Renee, to what you were saying, Secretary John King, he was, after Arnie Duncan and before Secretary DeVos. Right. So, but one of the things he used to say, he used to be over the New York Public Schools Chancellor and all that kind of thing. Real great guy, but one of the things he said at our LGBT annual program, 2 years ago, or 2016 maybe, but he said that education is a civil rights issue.
It is. And we are all having a role in that. I know
Yes.
it's difficult to kind of put that in perspective, but
Yes.
helping Americans go to school. And it helped me. My other factor there was I got a federal Pell Grant, but it's something that we get lost in translation and whatever we're doing here in UCP, but that's the one thing that our country is, as diverse as our country is, as all the issues that we have as a country, it is a common denominator that we really need to remain committed to. But that's,
And I think as we all do our jobs, we have to consider not just the racial diversity, but the diversity of our students. We have a tendency to refer to NCES data that just says 60% of students, and it's really not that simple in what we're doing.
But you're right, this whole education piece, I guess, it gets into diversity. Education is important, and it's definitely very important to your points, but also we gotta be careful of miseducation too. And, that people will say, I saw it on the internet, and what was the source of this information? Because there's a lot of misinformation, and we gotta be very careful with that, and it impacts individuals. I mean, I don't follow celebrities, but sometimes out here it make a big pop about a celebrity that they said something and they feel like, well, no, they didn't really say it. Somebody, put it out there, that this individual said. So we gotta be very careful about the education that we're getting also, because I come from an era where that they used to talk, the history books talk very disparagingly about Native Americans, and how you would see pictures of very happy enslaved Africans. So that wasn't the orientation of my household, but I had to get this test, and the teacher, I had to do what I had to do here,
So what I'm saying is that education has come a long way, and I've seen that just in my lifetime. So I've seen the change in how these kinds of experiences have now, we're moving closer to where we ought to be, but we have a long way to go, because I mean, we look at the Louisiana Purchase, and I saw I think on one of the commercials, I think it's one of the banks.
Capital One.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, and
One of the
they're all,
banks.
and it comes on his phone.
It comes on his phone, yeah. But when you think about what happened with the Louisiana Purchase, there were a group of Native Americans living there that all of a sudden they lost all their rights. The minute that went ding on that phone, so to speak, that became the end of life, and those individuals knew it living in that area. And that states all the way from the Gulf going all the way up to what we call Canada today. So when people talk about the rule of law, and it's interesting, and being a strict constitutionalist, well, where was the Constitution for those Native Americans? And where were the people out west, when that part of the country was part of Mexico, and people were going all up and crossing Rio Grande for centuries. And then all of a sudden, you can't come across here now because the border has been established. So we got to be very careful, I would say, about the history and culture and what we're learning. And I think we're getting better. We're much, trust and believe, we're much better, but we're not where we ought to be as we deal with this and how we educate ourselves about different groups and their experiences.
And that kind of brings us full circle, where this whole activity was about, one of the most powerful learning tools was experiential learning.
Yes.
And that's experiencing people and each other. So when we let people experience ourselves, then they get to learn. And when we experience others, we get to learn from them. And that's important, because had Renee not have met you today, he may not have heard that information about, it's a cute commercial, but there was a massacre to go along with
That's
it.
right.
And that might make Renee go like, dang, you're right, I didn't even think about that. Or there have been times where I've interacted with, my son has a sports coach, which his rhetoric has kind of shifted with the changes in our environment right now with the election and everything. And so he will say comments about Mexicans and all that stuff. And I just said in passing, Mexicans and Native Americans. And he said, what? I was like, yeah, they're called Mexicans because we do a little imaginary rhyme and saying, but Mexicans and Native Americans. So you're literally telling Native American to go back home when they're actually just coming back. And he was like, I was like, yeah, look up a picture of a Native American. It looked like Mexicans. And he did. And he was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, but had he not have made that comment to me and not been able to not get upset with him, but to say, yeah, Mexicans and Native Americans, you know what I mean? Then that experience wouldn't have happened to him. That would have made him think twice about the rhetoric that he was getting online and on TV, that he had been convinced because it was being regurgitated into him over and over again.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's what we're saying. It's not just about, it's about patience, the word that she used earlier, patience with each other and ourselves.
And I feel like there's still a lot of progress to be made. We do business with the Small Business Administration, and they call it Indian-owned businesses. And I'm Indian, but whenever I hear that, I was like,
they're talking about natives.
They're talking about Native Americans, but it's not politically correct, and it's like on all of their paperwork. And my sister, she actually went to a diversity forum, and she met with people who were Native American, and they find that offensive. So it's just interesting to me, just because they aren't highly representative, that they're still being disrespected in society today.
I took a trip to Cherokee, North Carolina, and they thought it was native. And I never visually viewed myself as even remotely looking like a native. But we went to their 4th of July powwow, and there was one line for visitors, one line for native families. So we got our bracelets, and they pointed us with the native families. And my son was like, we not, I was like, shh.
Express lanes.
Let's go have this experience. So we was just walking around, and it was this native family from like up north, and it was like, you need a family to sit with? And we was like, yeah. And they let us sit with their pal, and they just explained to us everything that we was experiencing, and we just, we participated in that whole process. But that was because they judged the book by its cover, and I played along, to get my experience. But that was interesting, because I had never had anyone think that I was a Native American. That was fun. Any other closing thoughts?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.